What's going on, everybody? It's Matt, the FF Mediators. Today I'm going to walk through DeVonta Smith, do a heat check on him, let you know whether I'm buying, selling, or holding. I'll also let you know what the other mediators are doing right now with DeVonta Smith on their teams or in their fantasy leagues. As it stands right now, wide receiver 39 on the year for DeVonta Smith. It's not been the best season so far. He's certainly missed one game due to injury. He also had his bye week already, so he's played two less games than most of the other wide receivers that we're going to be comparing him to. But the first 3 weeks of the season, he had pretty good involvement. 8 targets, then 10 targets, and 10 targets again. Then he missed his game. Week 6, he had uh, 14 points, only 4 targets, but he had a touchdown. And then last week against the Giants, he had zero point 0.3 points. So certainly not the week you wanted if you started him, but I think it's going to get better. Looking at this week for DeVonta Smith, he's got the Cincinnati Bengals with an second highest over/under on the week at 48. He goes against a secondary that's kind of not played great so far this season. They're middle of the road in rankings against wide receivers, but I don't think that's a good reflection of how they've played. So I think it's a pretty good matchup for DeVonta Smith and the Eagles this week. Yes, AJ Brown has played well this season. He missed a few games, 3 in fact, but the last 2 weeks he scored some points. Now, last week when they played the Giants, like I said, it wasn't a great week for DeVonta Smith, but a lot of that comes down due to AJ Brown and Saquon Barkley having a really, really good game, which put it out of reach for the Giants. It was 28-3. The Giants never amounted to anything on offense, so there was never even a threat to score. Um, Looking forward after that, you also get Jacksonville, Dallas, and Washington on the schedule for DeVonta Smith. So the next 4 weeks are really, really good matchups for DeVonta Smith, and I expect him to put some fantasy points up. And if I have him in a redraft league, I'm buying. I'm going to go see him if I can get him as a wide receiver 2 for my team, or maybe even as a flex wide receiver, because he's someone that I think is pretty good. Looking at keep trade cut for dynasty rankings, he's currently at 17. I think that's pretty close to where he would be for me, around 15 to 17. The names in the same tier as him are interesting. It's Rome Odunze, T. Higgins, Zay Flowers, Chris Olave, DJ Moore, George Pickens, and a lot of those names I'd take DeVonta Smith over. The ones that I think are interesting would probably be T. Higgins. Yes, Zay Flowers is playing really, really well right now, but I also kind of like the Eagles' offense more than I like Lamar's passing game, despite Lamar's crazy efficiency right now. So credit to him on that. And if I was going to trade for DeVonta Smith in a dynasty league, I think his value is probably somewhere around a random first. Or if you kind of know that you're a late first and the other owner knows you're a late first, you might have to throw in a second too. That's something I'd be fine with paying as long as I knew that I was going to be contending. Don't pay that if you don't know you're going to be contending. Because the last thing you want to do is move your first, move your second, add a wide receiver, and then end up not making the playoffs and have a high pick. So we always say evaluate your teams and make sure you're in contention for the title, so you can be sure to maximize that pick or maximize the player on your roster. Now, I do think there's a world where you can explore some tear downs to get to DeVonta Smith. Maybe you're a team that's kind of been blessed with a pretty good wide receiver room. You might be able to take someone like Drake London, maybe AJ Brown, Garrett Wilson, names like that, and move down to DeVonta Smith and net other assets back. So if you need a running back, you could add a running back in there. If you need some picks, you could probably move down and net a first or some seconds, things like that. Don't just do a move just to do a move. Be sure you're evaluating your team for what your team needs and what's going to best be the outcome for your squad. Now, be sure to let us know below what you're doing with DeVonta Smith. I'm interested to hear if anybody else is concerned, whether they're buying, whether they're selling. I know when I've talked to the other mediators, they're also buying DeVonta Smith. They are not concerned. They're chasing that volume. They're going to chase the player because we all know he's really, really good. We're just a few seasons removed from when he was a top 12 wide receiver on the season, and that was with A.J. Brown. So I think we need to slow the roll, not panic too much on DeVonta Smith, and if you can, I would go buy him. He's a buy for me. He's someone that I'm really comfortable putting into my lineup, flexing if I can, because I think the next 4 weeks are going to be really, really good for DeVonta Smith. I think he's a good DFS play if you can put him in there. Um, be sure to watch out what happens with this Eagles team because they need to score some points. Washington is competing for the division, and that's kind of surprised a lot of people. I don't think Dallas will go out quietly, so I think that will be a a showdown too in week 10 when they play at Dallas. So those are matchups that I want a piece of that game. And I think DeVonta Smith is a player that you can go get right now, especially coming off a week where he had zero point 0.3 points and A.J. Brown has looked really, really good. And so has Saquon Barkley. But that's going to do it for the heat check on DeVonta Smith for me. Be sure to let us know below what you're doing. Follow us over on X at the FF Mediators. Please like the video, subscribe to the YouTube at the FF Mediators. Be sure to also follow and subscribe to the Face Off Sports Network. We're proud to be affiliates with them, and we go live with them every single Wednesday at 8:30 Eastern, where we answer your fantasy questions, start sits, trades, buys, sells, holds, everything you can think of. We are answering your questions. But until then, we'll see you next time.